Hello, hello. Hi, Joel. Hello, DBT community. We're coming at you live today for yet another AMA. So my name is Amada. I'm on the team at DBT Labs. I always mess this up because my title's so long. And I'm the Community Development Program Manager on that team. And I'm joined by Joel Labes, who many of you know. He's a senior DX advocate on the DX and Docs team at DBT Labs. Joel, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, for sure. It's a real delight to be here. I've really enjoyed these sessions, and I'm really glad that I got called up as well.
For sure. We're so glad that you accepted. So what time is it for you right now, by the way?
It's 9 a.m. on Thursday, so coming to you from the future.
All right. That's right. Hello from the future.
Also from winter, but
sounds great. So a quick intro for those of you who may not know Joel yet. Joel's a senior DX advocate on the DX team right here at DBT Labs. For anyone who just tuned in, repeating that again, and he's based in Wellington, New Zealand. And before joining us at DBT Labs, he was a head of data at an ed tech startup for 10 years. You were there for a while, ended up becoming the head of data, which is fantastic. And you were building out their data capability, and that's how you discovered DBT and the DBT community. Is that right?
Yeah. So I joined Education Perfect just out of high school, and I was not head of data then. I was just hired as like a dog's body. I just did whatever work needed to be done, and then throughout, it was a startup that grew reasonably quickly, and so as it grew, there were new opportunities, and I sort of moved around into lots of different parts of the business, which then meant that after 7 or 8 years, I was doing a lot of our internal reporting just as a de facto thing of no one else was doing it, and it needed to be done. Then we got a new CEO who wanted us to take data more seriously, and so we started moving away from. He basically gave us the project let's take this data, let's take data seriously, let's do this properly. And I had to then go and work out, how do we do that, and what does that look like? And so I was just frantically Googling, how do you run a cloud data warehouse? Because we'd been doing all of our queries and just against the production database, and if they took too long, people couldn't log in, and I'd get yelled at. So we're trying to work out, what do we do that's better than that, and found a community written ebook. It's here's all the things you need to think about, and you're probably going to want DBT. And I went to the DBT website and was like, oh, I do want DBT. And that was sort of how it kicked off.
Oh, wow. You found it on an ebook. I didn't know that. Very cool.
Yeah. I think it was, might have been the Chartio team, who I think now are up into Atlassian, but they'd done some content marketing, community collaborative ebook thing that was, here's all the things that you should think about when you're building out your warehouse for the first time. And it had contributions from all the people who you'd know and love who'd come before me. Emily Shario had written a big segment on using DBT, and I was like, oh, well, this is exactly what I want. Let's get amongst it. So that was really fun to not only find the tools that I needed to do my job, excuse me, but I also jumped into the Slack and was like, hey, I'm just getting started. I'm thinking that we're going to either set up a Postgres database or Redshift. And everyone was immediately, no, you are not. Cut it out. You are not using Postgres. That will not scale. That will not. And so it was really helpful to get that advice of things that I didn't really know well enough what to do about it. So getting that community advice, I think, was really, really important to me, and was a big part of why I got so involved in the community and to have stuck around. And now I work here, sort of trying to pay that forward.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I think when you started using DBT and you were in Slack, there were only 4,000 people.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the time, 4,000 seemed like a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, there's already so many people who are doing this. I'm late. But looking back, there's now 80,000 people in Slack, 100,000 other community properties. So I guess I'm now part of the old old cohort. But.
Yes, for sure. An announcement, we're at over 60. So wow, that's just, again, at the time it would seem like a lot, but you're definitely OG. So all right, folks, I know some others have trickled in. So just for context, this is our monthly live AMA, or Ask Me Anything event series, and this is our 4th AMA. And so this is really a chance for all of you to connect with each other in Slack, and with us, of course, and Joel, and get your questions answered. So as many of you know, we have taken questions in advance in Slido, and we'll also be taking a few live in Slack. I know sometimes people can't get into Slack and they ask them in Goldcast, which we'll read, encouraging Slack, but if they're in Goldcast, that's okay. And if we don't have time to get to your question, Joel will do his best to reply in Slack after the AMA throughout his day. And so, we'll be having a super casual discussion and tackling topics such as starting a data team and DBT project from scratch, exploring the new compare changes functionality in DBT Cloud, and more, and hearing all of your thoughts and questions. And so if you're in Slack but not sure where to go, please head over to the DBT Community Merge channel. That's where we are today. You can chat with each other and with us. And we will not be able to help folks troubleshoot your DBT instances today on this AMA. But if you need help troubleshooting, please post in one of the relevant channels in Slack, or if you're a customer, you can also reach out to DBT Cloud support. So let's get started with our first question. Okay, so what are you most excited about in the data ecosystem at the moment? This is a question from Anonymous.
I am a little bit late to a lot of these parties, so I am now getting really into DuckDB. I know that was the hot thing probably 9 months ago, 12 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've now had some chances to actually use it in some real projects, and I've had a really good time with it. I spent some time a couple of months ago doing some taking the project that myself and Gans, my manager, and Jordan on the semantic layer team last year, we did some research on could LLMs be used to generate semantic model or semantic layer queries that would outperform just straight SQL code generation. And we sort of hacked that together in a Hex notebook. But when we wanted to come back and redo that with some other, with other LLMs and with other prompts and with other challenges, other tests, we wanted to expand on that. And the notebook was really good for prototyping, but then it didn't really scale. And so I was trying to work out what we were going to do for that, and wound up having a really good time with Streamlit, which has also been around for a while, and everyone loves, but I've been a little bit late to the party on. So Streamlit was really cool for building the UI, and then DuckDB we used for storing results data that I could visualize really quickly, because before that I'd just been outputting a data frame and copying it into Google Sheets and doing analysis from there. I think a lot of the things that I'm interested in right now are things that everyone else has been talking about for ages, that I'm finally okay, there's enough of a critical mass, I guess, on the bell curve of adoption. I'm normally in that late majority, as opposed to being on the cutting edge of everything, because there are only so many different new things I can try, and I try to keep reasonably on the boring path where I
can. Got it. Yeah, makes sense. And kind of on the topic, right before the call, 20 minutes before, we got this question: any plans to add support to Mother Duck and DBT Cloud?
Oh, I hope so. Yeah. I don't have an official answer, but I think that getting Mother Duck in is really cool. Actually, just saw last week that I don't know whether it was the Mother Duck team directly or part of the DuckDB cluster of organizations had added a plugin for Postgres that would let you run DuckDB in a Postgres context. And I really wonder whether you could get some of that benefit. Hey, Bruno, nice to see you. I wonder how far you'd get by installing that DuckDB. I think it's PG DuckDB, I don't know, or PG Analytics. Anyway, whatever one it is, taking that, and I wonder whether you could query that through the Postgres connector. That might be a way to bootstrap a DuckDB in the cloud.
Okay, good workaround. Okay. Okay, this is from Srinivas. Can you please provide a clear explanation of how DBT creates automatic models using the concept of code gen in DBT Cloud?
Yeah, sure. So we've had a code gen package for ages that was like an open source repo that does a really good job of helping you bootstrap your project, because a lot of staging models in particular are just like select all the different columns, just list them all out from, it's like pretty boilerplatey sort of work. And so we took that and implemented a very similar thing in DBT Cloud in the IDE. So when you are building a sources.yaml file or whatever .yaml, then when you list out your sources and you list out your the schema and then the tables that make up that source, then above each of the elements there'll be a little button where you can click to generate your staging table for each of those. And so that basically just introspects the information schema and generates a standard best practice conformant staging layer for you. We are at the moment, one of the things I'm working on with Drew is, and a little team is, what does it look like to take those staging layers and a lot of those code gen experiences and put some LLM source on them, so that maybe you have a way that you like your staging layers to be built. Then perhaps you can sort of codify some of that in a prompt, or you can. Something I'm really interested in is Claire wrote a banger of a post probably 4 or 5 years ago about writing models backwards, where you start by thinking about what the shape of the tables is going to be when you're finished, and then you work out what you want, and then you work backwards from that to how are you going to make it. And I think that there's a pretty strong case to be made that you could do a lot of the thinking in like Google Sheets or in wherever you want to do your mocking up, and then I think you could probably give that to an LLM and get a lot of help doing a lot of the boilerplate work to get that into production. Okay,
thank you. All right, there you have it. And thank you for your question to the person that asked this. So this one is from Roberto. It's not exactly a question, it's more of a comment, but still helpful to talk about, I think. So Roberto writes, a one-size-fits-all startup project is not perfect, but in my experience, an opinionated setup with basic read-write and read-only roles for each environment is a great start. And then he writes, for example, initial setup for most cases, developers, read-write to dev, read-only to QA and prod, reporting, read-only to all environments, maybe not to dev, DBT executor, and then read-write to all environments. So what's your response to this?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty safe strategy. There's an article which I'll dig up and drop in the chat later on, which was what I followed when we were first getting set up, and it follows a very similar pattern. Again, I think it was probably Claire who wrote it up if not Jeremy, which talks about having a loader. It was sort of it was like a best practices for what things are you going to do to set up your warehouse so that it's clean and comprehensible and scalable. And so it talked about having a loader role which could write into into the tables, but didn't need read access. You had your transformer role, which would want to be able to read and write, and you'd have your reader, which would be like your BI tools, so Mode or Looker or Hex or whatever. And so you set those up, and then that lets you enforce a lot of safety without in like a pretty scalable way. Like it works well enough for long enough that by the time it's not working for you anymore, you probably have got the experience of what you actually want. But just saying, like, there's these 3 roles, and each user or each person or entity or thing that connects to the database gets its own name, but it is connected to it's connected to one of those 3 roles. Gets you a long way. And then back in the day, we used to get this all done with post hooks. So you'd have, like, once each model finished running, you'd have to run a grunt command. And that was, I think that might have been one of the only places you were allowed to have double nested curlies. So it was a mess. I'm pleased to say that for like the last 18 months or so, you've just been able to do that with the grants config instead. And so when the DBT will take responsibility for ensuring that everyone has access to what they're meant to and not have access to what they shouldn't, but still enforced by the warehouse, which is actually one of my underappreciated things of DBT, is that you get so much for free by just leveraging the warehouse's capabilities. So we don't have to build an in-depth like user access model for the database, because we can just use the database as one directly, which is pretty nice.
Okay, very cool. Thank you. And are there any plans to let people set their own naming conventions in DBT Cloud and have it use the helpful features like generate model on sources or lenses?
Yeah, it's on the roadmap somewhere. I don't have like an exact answer, but it is definitely something that comes up. I think today we support like the standard like staging, intermediate marks things. I'm pretty sure we support medallion naming conventions as well, but there are some people who walk to the beat of their own drum and want to use different names. And yeah, it is on the list somewhere.
All right.
But I don't. That's not my direct area of the product. I don't actually know for sure.
Sure. Sounds like there's a lot on the way, a lot on the list, lots that we're building. So can you provide a good use case or examples for external tables in the source YAML? Is DBT expanding into ingestion with this? And if so, will it continue to grow?
Yeah, so maybe second question first. I don't think support for external tables necessarily means DBT is doing ingestion. I would say that the copying the data, or I don't even know whether you have to copy data strictly, like accessing the data from S3 or from an Iceberg catalog or whatever, I wouldn't necessarily call ingestion in the stricter sense. Like, I don't think we're in a rush to take on Fivetran. I mean, every day I get up and I just am so grateful that I don't work for Fivetran's like ingestion engineering team. That just seems like such a thankless job where the only thing that happens is either it works perfectly and no one knows or cares, or it goes wrong and you get yelled at a lot. I salute them. I'm so grateful to them, but I'm glad I'm not doing it. So yeah, ingestion. As for what the DBT external, so there's a package again called DBT external tables, which lets you specify those external tables. I can't remember whether this is already documented somewhere or whether I'm giving spoilers, but my colleague on the DX team, Anders, is very enthusiastic about getting a lot of that into DBT natively. So I'm pretty sure that's public. If it's not, so yeah, so that will, I think, continue to become a more delightful experience. But I don't think that it necessarily means that we are taking on ingestion in addition to the transformation part of ELT.
Okay. All right, makes sense. And so All right, Anonymous asks, if you were new to data modeling and DBT, what would you prioritize learning?
I think it depends where you're coming from. So when I started with DBT, I knew a bunch of like SQL, like from just having picked that up in my day-to-day work. So a lot of what I did was, the quick start guide, and I think I did DBT fundamentals. Those are like really good ways to get into the DBT mindset, which was as much like learning the names for the concepts that I've sort of intuited as much as anything else, because I had also spent a bit of time in software engineering. I'd spent a couple of years at Education Perfect as a back-end developer, and so I'd sort of picked up a lot of those concepts of like reusability, of composability, and that was one of the big problems we had with our old way of doing analytics at the company, was that we would have to, every time we got a new question, we had to basically have to go and find a query we would answer that in the past, copy paste it, make changes to it, and we made some like half-hearted stabs at, let's like manually define a view that's got like the standard building blocks of models, but it was such a pain to keep track of them all. And so when I found DBT and was like, this is like, these are the things I've been trying to do, but there's like a framework that makes it possible. So that was what was really important for me to learn. I think I probably could have spent more time on like the theory of database modeling. I still haven't really spent a ton of time on that. I think in a small company, I probably got away with it. If I was trying to then get a job at like a very large enterprise that has like enterprise data architects, I would be probably a bit out of my depth. So that's probably worth at least doing enough to like recognize the terminology and building an opinion on whether you need to go deeper on it. That's probably something I wish I had done looking back.
Okay. That's super helpful. And yeah, it makes sense. You have to, of course, prioritize different things depending on what you're trying to get out of it. But I hope whoever asked that is watching. Super helpful. So could you give us some sneaky peeks of the new features coming to DBT Cloud? No pressure if you can't, but the people demand it.
Yeah, I think a couple of things that I've been working on recently that are not public yet. They're generally in closed beta, so that's probably worth talking about, is the advanced CI stuff that we actually mentioned at a feature showcase a couple of months ago. That's been coming along really well. There's a handful of customers who are using that in closed beta right now, as I said, and really enjoying it. Basically what that is if you are familiar with the audit helper package that's again been open source for a long time, we're taking a lot of the principles of that and wrapping it up in a really nice UI in DBT Cloud. So when you build your existing CI role and CI process that you've got going on, where you open a PR, you build those tables, and you'll run the tests that are attached to those tables, but then to find out, hey, did that work? Like, is this data that I've built, is this actually, when I push this into production, what's going to happen to my tables? This answers that question. So it will give you a visual diff of, hey, here's some sample rows from the production version of the table. Here's those same rows on the CI side, and it'll do a diff and say, hey, these records have changed, these columns have changed. Here's these new columns that have been added or removed or had their position changed. Because there's all these things that once you push them out into production, you're like, did not realize that was going to break. And that's what the advanced CI component here, this compare changes, is really meant to help with. So I'm really excited about that. I had a lot of fun writing a lot of the queries for that and getting to take unit tests for a spin. That was a fun science project for me. The other things that are that I'm really keen on at the moment are query history. So ingesting like your Snowflake query history logs and using that to find tables that are not being queried out in the wild. So maybe they're obsolete and you can deprecate them altogether. I think that there's a lot of what's going on here is having DBT become more aware of the start and end of the DAG, like beyond just what happens inside of it. And so, for example, saying, the automatic exposures is probably another thing that's like that, where for Tableau today, Power BI pretty soon, we will actually go out and crawl all the different dashboards that live in whatever folders you've specified that are like, these are the important production dashboards. Then we can pull that into DBT Explorer and you can see it flow right the way through without having to manually write all of that YAML. Because I think exposures are something that I am really enthusiastic about, really bullish on. When they were first released, I actually was a showcase customer for the DBT Labs team, talking about how we were using them and how we were using the query the embeddable iframe status tiles. And I think a lot of the reason that they haven't lived up to their full potential has been that you've got to manually handcraft them. So the fact that now we can just go out and ping the Tableau API, get the data, and put that directly into DBT Explorer for you is really, really cool. I'm very enthusiastic about that. You combine that with the lenses of which tables are actually being queried a great deal and which ones aren't. Then I think that there's a lot of stories there for more efficient resource use, better query, better cost management. I think there's some really cool stuff coming down the pipe.
Okay. Awesome. Super thorough answer. What a treat. Thank you. Alrighty, so we have a few more questions. Well, more than a few more, actually. What do you think is the most underutilized but most exciting feature in DBT? That's a lot of pressure. You can just say one of the top.
So here's the thing. In absolute terms, this is a very commonly used feature, but I'm going to get up on my soapbox and talk about it anyway, because the percentages are not 100%. And I think that if you are not testing your data, then you're out of your mind. So that's insufficiently utilized, in my opinion.
Okay.
What I would say is that having, the standard tests, sure, they're fine. They're your bread and butter. Is your column null? Is your column unique? Yes, you should have those tests, and actually having those tests, you add them, you're like, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll add them, and then you find a problem. So that's good. But I think actually taking that to the next level and having your custom tests, either singular tests that test a very specific thing that's very important to your business, just having that query running and letting you know if anything goes wrong. But actually, unit tests, a funny thing happened for us with unit tests, where we've got the Jaffle Shop project that we use as our starter sample code. So anytime you do a DBT beginner project, it's probably going to be using the Jaffle Shop. And Winnie, one of my colleagues, was adding unit tests because she sort of had to, because we were keeping it up to date, and she was like, oh, what am I going to test? I guess I'll test that I've correctly added these two numbers together. And she found that she had not. That it was, I think it was a some case when statement sort of thing, where there was some I can't remember the exact specifics, but it was something that was meant to be a you know what it was? It was a count of a Boolean, where it was count something, then 1 else 0, instead of a sum, and so it was counting everything on every side. And I think that that's a really fun place. I have come when I was like a software engineer. I was a bit of a misery guts about like test-driven development because it seemed like so much hassle to actually get the testing harness up and going, that it was not really worth it until basically I was happy to come in and take someone else's tests and like extend them, but I hated setting them up from scratch myself. I would say that the way that the unit tests have been set up for in DBT, we've really benefited from the fact that Michelle, who was the tech lead on that, had already built her own unit testing framework at one of the FIs. It was either Shopify or Spotify. I think it must have been Shopify. Anyway, she'd already built that all out, and so we were coming at it from like a really strong place with a strong foundation. Then we fleshed it out to make it more scalable. But it's actually like very delightful to write unit tests. So that's my answer. Is underutilized feature is like unit tests that go beyond just the out of the box stuff. I really think that you should be validating that your assumptions make sense, because the best possible time to find a mistake is before it's on the dashboard.
Got it. I love that answer and did not expect that. It's like, this is widely used and it should be even more widely used. Love it. So this question is a DBT question. It's not super specific to Joel and Joel's role, but it is from Adarsh in the Goldcast chat. And this person is hopefully watching, so definitely want to get to your question. And thank you for asking something. And Adarsh says, we're a small company, less than 100 people. We use SQL Server, Power BI, and Power BI only. How can we benefit from DBT?
Yeah, so my data team that at Education Perfect, we were a team of 3 or 4, and what we got a lot of benefit from was the reusability of our work, not having to re-implement the same solutions over and over again. We moved away basically from querying SQL Server. Well, we weren't using Power BI. We were using some homegrown monstrosity of a reporting tool. It was a mess, but we were sitting on top of SQL Server and doing our reporting from there. So then we moved to Redshift. But there is a SQL Server plugin for DBT Core, which was made by a friend of DBT and in fact now employee of DBT, Anders. I think I don't want to get ahead of myself. I think like Fabric is really interesting because Fabric you can connect to from DBT Cloud as well. And my rough understanding is that Fabric is like a wrapper around SQL Server and Friends. So it could be that you can also get it going in cloud. But yeah, you can definitely set up DBT with SQL Server, and then it's the same benefits that everyone sees from DBT, which is modularizing your logic. So instead of having like a 5,000 line stored procedure that's managing a lot of state, you describe the shape of the table, how you want your data to be when it's finished, and DBT takes responsibility for making that happen. And so you can break these things up, you can keep track of them, you can reuse them, you can test them, as I've said. And then, yeah, if you're on cloud, then you can also trace it right down through into how are these actually used in Power BI. So definitely a viable strategy for you. And hey, Jenna's here as well. It's fun. Look at all these people who I know. DBT Docs, yes.
Hey, Jenna.
Yes, DBT Docs for sure. But the visualization of where does this all go is definitely a big thing.
Cool. All right, awesome. There you have it, Adarsh, and hope you're still tuned in. All righty, so got some more questions. If you are not, these are just came in, so if no pressure, or you can skip, but just so folks know, there's demand for this answer. What is happening? What is happening under the hood with the AI Assist feature, and how does it relate to the CodeGen DBT package? Why use one versus the other?
Yeah, so the so in the IDE in DBT Cloud today, there's a button that's AI DBT Assist, and that has two things. It will generate your documentation for you, and it will also generate your tests, I think. And then by contrast, the generate models popover that's in your whatever .yaml files, that is not AI powered today. That's just pretty basic, like just code generation, just like templating. So there's those two different things. The documentation generation is something that we're looking at again at the moment, continuing to iterate on. That's been what I've been spending a bit of my week on, has been like, how do you get good documentation out? Because there's, I think, another colleague of mine, friend of the show, Faith, wrote a really good article last week, a couple of weeks ago, on our Substack about documentation. She is very possibly the queen of documentation advocacy, but she was talking about like what are like the good questions to answer in your documentation. It's like who is this for? Like what values are there? What are the outliers? What are the discrepancies from what you would expect? And that's the stuff that you really want to put into your documentation. And so just saying, thanks, Jenna. Just saying that customer ID is the unique identifier of the customer, it's like sort of naff. And so I think that the way that we do better than that is, I am really interested in having the AI be an interviewer. Like it is pulling that information out of your head, because like writing good documentation from scratch is like a pain, but we all implicitly generate this information. When we get like a, hey, you got a minute, or I just got a quick question for you on Slack, like we wind up giving this information back out of, the thing you need to know about this column is that sometimes it behaves in this way. And so I am much more interested in like an interviewer sort of paradigm, where the AI is asking intelligent questions and like, hey, what is going on with this column, to help you build out your own mental model, and then it can help you persist that out into code. Because what we're going to find is that a lot of like the AI powered discovery stuff assumes that your documentation is good, and so if you were just like AI generating slop, then like it's sure you've ticked off your box of right documentation, but it's not going to be as healthy for your ecosystem in the long run. So I do not know whether that answered the question. I think I went off on a tangent.
Sure. All right. Thank you. And thank you, Jenna, for the link. And I also put Faith's Substack link in Slack. And Jenna just asked a question. Actually, did you just address that, or?
No,
I did
not.
What? All right, Jenna says, what I'm missing from the Assist generated YAML is data types, especially since they are required for contracted models.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to go talk to someone about it. I have no smart answer for you, but yep, we should do that. I will get on that.
See, that's what happens when you come to the AMA. You can get your feedback. Yeah. Amazing. Okay. Let's see. Time check. Maybe 13, 14 minutes before we start wrapping up. Okay, so got a few other questions. What product developments will be needed to make DBT work in a cross-platform world, such e.g. iceberg tables?
What a fun question. Right. This is the part where I pause for a minute and work out what I can say without getting fired.
Sure. Yes. Okay. Take your time. We need you. Take your time.
I would say that it is this is like the most compelling version of this that has been possible. At a offsite probably like 2 years ago, Anders and Jeremy were talking about like, oh, maybe we could like do this sort of thing with like Arrow was very new and very exciting, and so like, oh, maybe we could like take everything and dump it into like an S3 bucket on like store. There was like a lot of like ideas that would probably work but would like sort of suck. And what Iceberg is what the promise of Iceberg is really, really interesting. I have not been involved on it directly, but there are a lot of things that are like DBT's whole shtick is like whatever you can do in SQL in your warehouse, you can do with DBT, and we can just make it easier for you and provide a framework and provide best practices and provide governance and layer all those things on top of it. But like whatever your warehouse makes possible, we can make possible for you, which is also why I've been having a really good time earlier this year doing like AI stuff inside of the warehouse, because hey, now like all of the warehouses have their LLMs exposed, so now you can do AI in DBT and actually get like some really useful stuff done with it. So in that same vein, the fact that it is easier than ever to interact with Iceberg or data that's stored in an Iceberg catalog is really good news for us, and you should come to Coalesce.
Yes, come to Coalesce. I want to see everyone there. October 7th through 10th. Okay. All right. So let's see, another one that came in right before the call. What are some current or future solutions for teams that want DBT Cloud to be central command for everything related to the data warehouse? For example, permissions.
So permissioning, like I said earlier, you can already do with the grants config. So you can have your DBT, like your production DBT executor, be responsible for enforcing the grants that you've defined in your warehouse. I don't know that we would ever. They would probably stay in the enforcement zone as opposed to like helping you define all of those grants. I don't know. I'm getting out a bit ahead of myself there, but as for like, what does it look like to be a DBT user where DBT is the center of your data control plane? Then I think that's a very compelling place for us to be able to solve like a lot of useful problems for people. So going beyond just, hey, we'll do your transformations and we'll run them on a schedule. It's like, well, how can we be more proactive in what we run for you, so that we can take advantage of the fact that we know what is going on in your, we know what's going on across your DAG. How can we help run your things at the right time, at the right frequency, using the right sized compute, and have it all done on time and without you having to spend a lot of time faffing.
Okay. Alrighty, makes sense. Okay. So how do you stay up to date with the data industry beyond the hype? Sounds like you read a few Substacks, of course, from our friends. But is this important to your role, staying up to date? And I know the answer is yes, but how do you stay up to date?
I think something that I struggle with is staying up to date without jumping on every shiny thing.
Right.
And so because I'm like very easily distracted. Yeah. So I sort of have to, as like a self-defense mechanism, have to wait until things have cropped up a couple of times. And so, I think it's the ways that you'd expect. I read a roundup when it comes out. Sometimes I get roped into writing a roundup, and that's always very useful for me. It's fun, but it's very panicky. And we've also got like obviously there's the community Slack channels. I like to poke through like I read this, I made this channels have like a good hive mind of like what's going on. We've got an equivalent sort of thing in the internal Slack where that's where I get a lot of my news and my updates, is not going and seeking them out myself. It's more filtering through the rest of the hive mind to see what everyone else is, what's on their minds.
Okay, sounds great. And I just gave a shout out to I made this channel. So I'm responsible for those dings that just came through. Yeah, awesome. I love the idea. I love the idea of you reading the roundup and being like, wow, this is so good. This is brilliant. And you're like, wait, I wrote this. Like,
no, totally. when I write it, what I actually do is read it and be like, oh no, there's the typo that I fixed.
Yeah. No, of course. It's more realistic, but cool. So yeah, very cool. And I can see how, I mean, I'd be honored to be asked to write on something like that, but also, definitely panicky. So cool. Sounds cool though. And all right. So I think we have time for one or two more questions. What are you most looking forward to at Coalesce? What should we be expecting? I'm selfishly prioritizing this question since I'll be there and I want to meet folks. So hopefully folks come. So yeah, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to being at Big Coalesce this year. So I'm actually listening to the first in-person Coalesce where I'm going to be going to the US for it. So I'm very excited about that.
Cool.
What that means in practice is that so I've got two of the tracks are I'm helping the speakers get ready for that. So I've got 19 or 20 sessions that I'm working with all the speakers, getting them ready, and they're just such good sessions. I'm really looking forward to. So the two tracks that I've got are data governance and AI. So there's some really cool stories of people who are using DBT to to actually solve problems today in the real world, and that's my favorite sort of story. I actually picked the sessions for another track, which was the industry best practices track. So if you like those sessions, I did a bang up job. If you didn't, well, you can take it up with me in Las Vegas. But there's just very good sessions across the board of people actually getting stuff done, and that is one of my big criteria when I was choosing sessions and when I'm working with speakers. It's you've made a cool thing, but what has actually come out of it? What in your last couple of slides, what is the good news that has come as a result of you spending this time on this project? And everyone's got really strong answers to that. So I'm really excited about that. But I would say, since I'm here pitching Coalesce in general, the in-person stuff is it's very difficult for a lot of people from this end of the world to make it to Las Vegas. But if you are within cooey of the in-person event, then I think that there are some unique things that you can. So we've got the peer exchanges there, which we're not recording because we want people to be able to be open and honest with each other. I think Jenna's hosting one, so go to that. You've got a bunch of hands-on workshops with both the DBT Labs team and with other partners who really know their stuff. So there's a lot of in-person stuff that will really power up both your technical knowledge with the workshops and your community social battery with the peer exchanges, with the meetups, and that is a pretty exciting combination.
Okay.
is what I'd say. So there's a lot of, I mean, if you can't make it, then like, yeah, that's totally fine. Like, if my work doesn't change me, I would not like to it's like a very long way. But like the recordings are going to be great. There's a lot of value that you'll get from appearing and attending online, and you get to do more memes in Slack. But if you can make it work to get to Las Vegas, then definitely recommend it.
Yeah, definitely.
And Bruno, I don't think is hosting. Bruno's hosting a session. I don't know whether there's there is doing any workshops.
Are you doing workshops, Bruno?
Bruno and Dakota. Yeah, they're doing one on. I think it's like advanced deployment with DBT Cloud, which might actually be in the best practices track.
Oh yeah.
So I'm really accepted it.
Okay. Got it. Oh, advanced pipelines in DBT Cloud. Okay. I know I definitely saw your names in the speaker trackers and all of that, but good to know good to plug your session now. Thank you. Amazing. So what do you most enjoy doing when not working in data?
When I'm not working in data, I have a 3-year-old daughter, so that takes up a lot of time. We go on a lot of beach walks. We're in a frozen stage right now, as I think a lot of 3-year-olds are, and we have been the last couple of weekends going out to the beach. We have a perfectly serviceable beach, like 5 minutes away from our house. But instead, we go to another beach, like on the other side of town, because one time we were out there and we had a coffee. We went for a walk along the beach, and we're pretending to look for like bits of sea glass as surprises from Elsa, and now that's like the beach, and now I've got to schlep all the way across town to go and visit this other beach. So it's like very cute, but that's the sort of shenanigans that I put up with. So.
Oh my gosh, that's totally hilarious. You like moved to that beach on purpose, probably, and now you have to drive across town. Very cute.
It's a lovely beach. It's a dog beach as well. So there's dogs running around, which is like good news for me. I like seeing the doggers.
Wow, is the beach really a beach without dogs? I don't think so.
Okay. Well, some beaches are dog free because Indy does not love. She loves the idea of dogs, and then they get close, and she's like, "Oh, I don't think so."
Okay, that makes sense. And I know some.
So admiring from a distance is actually ideal.
No, I'm kidding. I know not everyone's comfortable with dogs, so it's great to have both for sure.
I think so.
Oh, my dog Matza. Yes. Yeah, they're probably not the same size anymore, for sure not. But they would look adorable playing together. Yeah. So let's see. What advice would you give to a younger version of yourself, knowing everything you do now? It's just such a broad question. I love asking it, but I think we can make it specific to career and data things, of course. But yeah. So in your development, or just anything in your career, or anything personal that affected your career, I think is a good way to approach it.
I've gotten a lot of mileage and benefit in my career of like trying out a lot of things and bouncing around from thing to thing, working out what it is I want to do. It's probably a difficult thing to do unless you're in like a very small startup. Like it was easier like when I was like the 6th or 7th full-time employee at EP, and so like we kept doubling in size every year, and so it was like new stuff that needed to be done, and I was like, I'd like to give that a go. And so I sort of got to leverage my business context to help me try out things that, like, where I coming in cold, I probably would not have been qualified to do, but the deep business knowledge gave me a head start doing other parts. So it's like came in with a lot of without the technical skills, but could build those up while using my business context. So that pattern worked really well for me. I would probably try and, I joined DBT at like 150 people, so much larger than EP was, but much smaller than it is now. And that pattern is, I'm really enjoying being able to run it here as well. So I guess I'll just spend 10 years here and then go and find somewhere else and spend another 10 years there, and then I'll. No, I don't know. Yeah, I think trying a lot of new things and not getting locked into one line of work is I've really enjoyed. But I think that's just my brain thrives on novelty. So so going and trying different things, but probably realistically do what makes you excited. That's like very cliche advice, but
for sure. And it's fun to work at a, not a huge company. Also, like every year has been different for me here. So yeah, novelty's fun and learning and trying different things. So that's a plug for working at DBT Labs.
Yeah, hiring.
We are hiring. Yeah. All right. I guess we do have, I don't know if we have time for one more question. Maybe we can, okay, I think time to wrap up. So thank you so much, Joel. Thank you for your time. So grateful you took the time to meet me and our community members, our fellow community members, to get everyone's questions answered and to get to know you a bit better too. I want to let everyone know the recording will absolutely be available soon. We're posting a link in the DBT community merge channel when it's ready. And if you've been to past AMAs, it's in the same landing page as well. And lastly, please keep your eyes out for next month's AMA, which will be on September 25th at 2 p.m. Eastern with a guest who Joel works closely with, Jason Gans, the senior manager of the DX team, developer experience. And the sign up is on the same page you used to sign up for Joel's AMA. So yeah, that's a wrap. See you next month. Thank you so much, Joel. Any final closing words?
No, thanks everyone for the great questions. Thank you, Amada, for keeping track of them all. And I hope to see you all in Las Vegas. I have not yet decided whether I'm going to wear my ridiculous T-shirt with my
with your face
profile. Yeah, I think it's done its dash, so I'd have to print another one, and it was very expensive. I'm not sure how committed I am to the bit.
Wow.
If you want me in my dumb T-shirt, then send me a DM on Slack.
It's an incredible shirt for folks who haven't seen it. It's your actual Slack photo, right? Printed.
Yeah.
Everyone needs that at a conference.
The main thing I'm worried about at conferences is someone comes up and is like, "Hey, it's so good to meet you," and I'm like, "Hey, buddy, I don't recognize your face because you don't look like your photo."
For sure. That's why, yeah, those shirts should be mandatory. I'm sad to hear they're expensive.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, Jenna said joining Faith in voting for costumes at Coalesce. I didn't know we were doing that. That sounds amazing.
Unequivocally.
All right. Looks like we're voting for costumes at Coalesce. Sounds amazing. Thank you, Jenna. All right. Thanks, folks. Thanks, Joel. See you next month, September 25th. All right. Bye.